this video, we introduced three very useful functions related to indexing that use logical operators. They are which, match, and in. Which gives us the entries of a logical vector that are true. Here's an example. If I define x as the vector false, true, true, false, which of x gives us 2, 4, 5. Those are the indices of x that are true. This can be useful, for example, when the logical vector that we want to use to index is very long and we only want it for indexing, so we can just keep the actual indices, not the entire vector of logicals. As an example, suppose we want to look up Massachusetts murder rate. The function which tells us which entries of a logical vector are true. So we can type index which state equals Massachusetts, and now index will be 22. That's because that's the only entry that was true. That's Massachusetts entry. So now to get the murder rate, we simply index the murder rate value, and we get that it's 1.8, a pretty low murder rate compared to other states. Now, we don't need to use which for what we just did. We could have just used the logic vector. However, it makes index a much smaller object. The next function we're going to look at is match. Match looks for entries in a vector and returns the index needed to access them. Suppose that instead of one state, we want to find out the murder rate for several states, say New York, Florida, and Texas. Here we can use match. Let's look at an example. This function tells us which indices of the second vector match each of the entries of a first vector. So here it is. We say match New York, Florida, Texas, and then the second vector are the state names. So index is going to be 33. That's the index that matched New York. 10, the index that matched Florida. And 44, the index that matched Texas. So now to confirm that we did this right, we can simply type murder state, use the index, and see that we actually got the three states we wanted, New York, Florida, and Texas. And now we can also look at the murder rates of these three states, which are 2.66, 3.4, and 3.2. The last function we're going to look at is perhaps the most useful, and it's the in operator. If rather than an index, we want to know whether or not each element of a first vector is in a second vector, we use the function in. Here's a simple example. Let's define the object x as the first 5 letters, A through E, and let's define y as A, D, and F. If I ask y in x, I get back true, true, false. This is because A, the letter A, is in the object x, the letter D is in the object x, but the letter F is not, so we get a false. So, say you're not sure if Boston, Dakota, and Washington are states, and you want to find out. Here's a simple way you can do it. You type Boston, Dakota, Washington, and check to see if they're in the state vector. And you can see that Boston's not a state, Dakota's not a state, but Washington is. We will be using these functions often, as subsetting data sets into different strata is a very common task in data science. You will commonly be asked to look at subsets of the data for this country or that country, this sector or that sector, etc. So make sure to familiarize yourself with these powerful tools.